Huge win on the Trump tax bill. All right, so it's now passed the Senate, the House committee. So 16-14. The only holdouts were Thomas Massie, who I like, and some lady named Victoria Sparks. I think she's from Indiana. I think she's a Ukrainian, actually. And I'm not sure what her holdout was for. But I know Massey's like, there's too much spending, but whatever. Anyway, it's a big win to pass it through the committee. Ted Cruz proposed a legislation that passed, I think it was unanimous, 100-0, on the no tax on tips. And if that doesn't get you fired up, nothing will, because the facts are no tax on tips no one was talking about that until the Trumpster talked about it. And then Kamala tried to steal from him, because that's what Democrats do. They're thieves, dude. So Democrats try to steal. And of course, winners never cheat and cheaters never win. So sucks to be you, Kamala, and the Democrats, because now you're on the outside looking in as Trump is steamrolling you guys. So we got a legislation in the Senate that was passed, I think it was 100-0 on no tax on tips. Again, no one was talking about that until Trump came along. And now we go through the reconciliation of these various aspects of the tax cuts or tax bill. It's going to be fun to see, because this is where the sausage gets made. But it'll never come out of committee, or I shouldn't say committee, it'll never come out to a floor vote until Mike Johnson and John Thune know they got the votes. It'll never come to a vote until the votes are known. If they don't have they will not send it to the floor to be voted on until it's guaranteed a passage. I'm just telling you right now. So passing the committee is huge. That is probably 3/4 of the way there. They're gonna have to go back and make sure that some of these Senate withholders and Republicans in Congress at least support the bill and pass in the floor in order to pass it. And once it's passed, dude, it's a huge win. No tax on tips. I don't know if if the reconciliations have no tax on overtime. I don't know if there's something explicitly about no tax on Social Security. I don't know. That's the thing about reconciliation. This is what the proposal in the House is. This is the proposal in the Senate is. They meet together and they say, okay, let's do this or do this instead or something like that. And this is where, this is where the lobbyists really take over, because the lobbyists are really ones, writing the bills and whatnot. But Trump said, I want these, I want that, I want this, I want that. So lobbyists, be advised, they're going to have to adhere to what Trump wants. His big, beautiful bill is going to have some things on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, hopefully no tax on Social Security. It'd be interesting to see. Anyway, it's funny because as some things are in here. I'm sure there's an expansion of earned income tax credit, which I'm a fan of. And I used to not be. I used to say, oh, man, we're giving people money, for what? For working. But now I am. We need people to work, dude. That's all. We need labor. And so things like the expansion of the earned income tax credit, that's for children. You have to work, earn income tax credit, and you have to have kids. I would like expansion on having people have babies too. So we want to encourage labor. We want to disincentivize people sitting on their butts earning welfare. That's just a fact. So expansion of earned income tax credit is good because it gives people money, refundable tax return for having babies, and if they're still working in relative poverty. I think it's great. And I'm not sure without showing the reconciliation process, but that's a good move. I actually wish they'd have more credits. I think some liberals have some good policies, like you should never go in debt for having a baby. I completely agree with that 100%. It should be like a baby tax credit. If it costs you $10,000 to pop one out, the government's gonna pick that up because that baby's gonna be a taxpayer for sure. It's actually encouraging work is the way to go, man. We've been encouraging freaking just sitting on your butt for too long, and now we just got to go back to saying if you don't work, you don't eat, essentially. And now if you can't work, that's fine. If you're raising babies, that's fine. But if you're just a 35-year-old guy, I don't want to work anymore. I'm sitting. I don't even know how these guys do this. Like people like, I'm out of the workforce. How do you do that? Anyway, it's very interesting too, because I was reading this article by Gerald Otten and David Splinter, if memory serves. It's a white paper, actually. And I think they both were the Joint Budget Committee on Taxation I don't know. Anyway, they both are in the government working, and they wrote this white paper on taxation, on income. And they said, hey, they're challenging the idea of the left-leaning economists like Thomas Piketty and whatnot, that the wealthy's income has risen significantly more than the non-wealthy. And they say, well, in of itself, that's true, but if you're just talking about taxable income, but how about actually benefits, i.e. transfer payments, Section 8 housing, food stamps, supplemental security income, these things and whatnot. Medicaid. All these things are additions to your wealthy, or your wealth, well, not your wealth necessarily, but your standard of living, but they don't show up on the 1040. And if you actually add those into the poor people's realm, they actually make a hell of a lot more money. But they make more money than they did than what the liberals are trying to say, going back from like 1965 or something like that. It's just a fact. And so what happens, though, is that I agree with Ott and Splinter's take on this. Is like, you can't just look at tax returns. You got to look at all this other stuff as well. The drawback is, though, is that I don't want to encourage people not to work. And so transfer payments, while they're not taxable, they're not subject to a 1040, and it makes it look like the wealthy aren't making as much relative to the poor. And I hate to say poor, but the other 90%. Is what the liberals will say. We want to encourage labor. We want to get people off their butts and off welfare into working. You see what I'm saying? So it's just interesting to me. I say, yeah, I get what you're saying, guys. But at the end of the day, are these people working or not? If they're not working and we're paying them all these transfer benefits, that's not good. That's not good for stability. It's not good for in creating good habits of labor, of thrift, of saving, and things of that nature. So we want to encourage work. And I hope there's more in the reconciliation. I hope there'll be more stuff that encourages labor, encourages child giving. Don't tax on tips is huge, man. No tax on overtime is huge. We want to incentivize people to get out there in the workplace. God wants us to work. He doesn't want to sit around smoking dope and freaking grabbing ass. He wants us to labor. Labor is a good thing. So anything that encourages more of it, I'm good. Anyway, so hopefully Trump's bill, the reconciliation process will come in. It'll be interesting to see. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. I'll be enlightening you as we find stuff out. But this is a big deal. Passing the committee is huge. Going into reconciliation is big. Again, it won't come to the fore until Mike Johnson and John Thune know that we have the votes for it. And if we don't have the votes, I'd be stunned. I mean, Republicans got, a 6-seat majority, very thin majority. You're going to tell me they don't have the ability to pass something, or else we're going to have a massive tax increase? Yeah, that's not what Republicans are paid for. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts.